Hey guys, and welcome back to Deck Doctor, episode number 7. And today we're going to be covering a deck which I've been playing a lot of recently and really enjoying. And that is the red-blue bargain control deck. Now this deck uses bold bargainers, spring mochis, and ogre dancers to reduce the cost of big taunters like Ogre Battler and Ice Rock Behemoth to overwhelm your opponent on the defense, and then eventually you push some land up, and then you start developing these creatures more aggressively to finish off your opponent. And this is a load of fun. I really enjoy this deck because it can really swing with some great bold bargainer hits. And this deck is a deck I bumped into on ladder against a player called Matthew, a very good player who's participated in a lot of the monthly cups. And he was ranked 12 with a variation of this deck, and I was playing Gabrian Wishes at the time, and I thought, I'd give it a shot. So I built my own version, and this is what I've come up with so far through various tweaks. It's quite an expensive deck, a lot of epics in it, because there's Garadan as well, but a lot of fun to play. So let's talk about the creatures as we start things off. So the creatures have a lot of different roles. Lore Thief is going to be our gatherer. He's also going to be drawing cards for us as well and accelerating towards our bargain cards, our cost reduction cards, but also our taunters as well. And he synergizes really well with Mochi, because when Mochi's effect is active and you draw cards with Lore Thief, you'll get to those cards a lot quicker with that cost reduction. Gabrian Archon's up next, just a cheap 4 Faeria card. It's a 4/4 with charge 2, but of course the added benefit of getting +2/+2 when you play 2 7-cost cards or higher during the game, and they activate all the Archons in your deck as well. A very powerful stats card for 4 Faeria. I've talked about this in my mono blue deck doctor video, so very easy fit in this deck because we run a lot of high cost cards. Up next is Grandshaker. Grandshaker is just one of the best red cards easily. 5/6 for 6 Faeria. Deal 1 damage to all enemies. It's going to really help with cleaning up Faeria gatherers, but also just having a good stable creature to fight on board or collect Faeria. Ogre Battler's up next. A 6/9 for 8 Faeria. Now, most of the high cost stuff you won't be paying its full cost, or you'll have so much Faeria from Windfall in that it won't even matter. Ogre Battler is a pain to deal with, 9 health. If he gets Last Nightmare, you're probably not going to be that bothered because you have another 2 Ogre Battlers plus the Ice Rock Behemoths plus the Grandshakers and all the other heavy stuff you have coming up. Really hard for red players to deal with. 9 health is just so tough because they have to throw so much damage-based removal at it or invest a lot of creatures. So this is a great card to use. Ice Rock Behemoth is one of the premium creatures in the deck. He requires 3 lakes, 3 mountains, so you can take a little while to develop, but he is incredibly powerful. Taunt, protection, and an 8/8 can be used aggressively and defensively, and this card can act as a finisher, but it can also act as kind of like the last bastion of defending your orb in a tough spot. Great card. Bit slow, so there's only 2 in the deck, but you have the Aurora's Creation to help with that. Last but not least, we have good old Garadan. Your AoE clear, and this deck packs a lot of AoE clears, triple Firestorm and Garadan. And the reason is, I wanted the bold bargainers and yoga dancers to have the best value possible, so running stuff like Flame Burst didn't make any sense. So I ran basically the highest cost damage-based removal in the game, which is Firestorm, and then followed by the creature which is Garadan. So just fits really great into this, and you can get him very cheaply. So let's talk about these cost reduction cards that we'll be using in this deck. Start things off, we have Spring Mochi, going to be one of your primary Faeria gatherers, one of the cards you're going to be looking for in your mulligan, and you want to get this lady down because she's going to collect Faeria and she's going to give that cost reduction, which hits so many cards in this deck, and she's just one of the cost reduction cards that fuels this deck. We have the event card Ogre Dance next. A random card in your hand costs 7 less for 4 Faeria. Great card, especially if you hit the higher cost stuff like we looked at earlier, the Ogre Battlers, the Grandshakers, the Ice Rock Behemoths, and they only cost 4 Faeria, and it's a little cheaper than the Bold Bargainer. And Boldbargner, Speak of the Devil, same effect, but in a gift, but you get a 3/4 body for 7 Faeria. So they're very similar. They're basically identical, apart from one's an event and one's a creature. And you really want to get good value from these cards. You can kind of roll the dice on trying to get something reduced to have a good play that turn. Say like you can if you hit your Firestorm, you're gonna get a lot of value. You can make those kind of high risk, high reward plays, or you can kind of thin your hand out until you want to hit something very specific. So hand management's really important in this deck because you want your Ogre Dancers and your Bold Bargainers to get the most value they can, but also you want to be able to use them in situations where getting the most value isn't an option because of the board state or you're under a lot of pressure. So it's a card you'll have to get used to in certain situations, but great cards in this deck. Basically the core of the deck, what the whole deck's based on. That's why we call it bargain control. So up next, let's talk about the event cards in this deck. So up first is Aurora's Creation. Now this is a card I've only just recently started playing with, and I think it's awesome. Actually, I've only put one of in so far. Might actually add another one, but it'll take a little bit more testing before I make that decision. But this just gives you a bit of utility because you can creation whatever card you need for the situation as long as they're on board. So if you have an Ogre Battler down, you want another taunt, you can get that taunt. If you need some damage-based removal with a creature, you can get Garadan or Ground Shaker. Ice Rock Behemoths are great targets. So there's a lot of great targets in this deck for this card, and I think it has a lot of potential. I've only played with it for about an hour, and I've been really happy with the results. So if you feel like you can squeeze another, another in the deck, I definitely recommend it. It'll prove to be very useful. Up next is Firestorm. Now I run 3 of these, and some of the players that watch my stream have been saying like I run too many, but I just love having triple Firestorm and Garadan, especially with all the cost reduction in this deck. Like I said earlier in the video, I don't want to be running Flame Bursts or Cypher's Wraths, I want Bold Bargaining to get as much value as possible. And what's more value than the biggest AoE removal that Faeria has outside of Meteor, and that's the Firestorm card, and being able to chain these off back to back and just wipe whole boards is awesome. So I'm a firm believer in 3 Firestorms in this deck, but if you find it a bit clunky, maybe try another creation, or maybe get that extra lore thief in if you don't have 3 of them. Last but not least is Windfall, just one of the main Faeria generation cards, another card that gets really good if it's hit by the Bold Bargainer or the Ogre Dance, but also a 10 cost as well to fill the Gabrian Archons. And we've seen how powerful this card is in mono blue, and it really shines in this deck as well. So let's quickly talk about the mulligans before we move on to land placement. So as far as the mulligans go, these are the only 2 cards I'm looking for. I want cheap Faeria Gatherers to kickstart my Faeria generation, and these 2 are the stars when it comes to that. A Mochi and Lore Thief in your opening hand is really good because on turn 2, you'll have 2 legs on each side of your orb, and then you can Mochi into Lore Thief and then can draw into that cost reduction. So these are the 2 primary cards you'll want to be looking for. I think Ground Shaker's a decent keep if you think you're going up against, say, Yellow Rush, because you're going to hit a lot of 1 health. Same against Green Yellow Sack. So if you have some idea of what your opponent's playing from playing them in previous matches, maybe you can actually just take a card that's better for that matchup. So if you know they have no hard removal, say like Red Rush, Ogre Battler might be a good keep. So you need to get some matchup experience to know what other cards you might be looking for in your mulligan, and also what your opponent's playing. But these are the 2 primary cards that I always hunt for with this deck. So let's talk about the land placement to finish things off. So building land with this deck's pretty simple. You want to play this like a control deck, and so you're going to build in land by your own wells just to start collecting. And your opponent's going to come to you, and you're going to defend with your taunters. Eventually, you'll want to push up around the wells to double collect. Once you feel you've stabilized in your end of the board, this is a good opportunity to do that. Or if you want to contest slower decks that are also going for the double collection as well. And then eventually, you'll want to get an aggressive mountain on your opponent's well, or at least close to there, to start pumping out Ogre Battlers and Ice Rock Behemoths and Ground Shakers to their orb once you've stabilized on board, and then you're eventually ahead. So once you get ahead on board, that's when you make your aggressive move with that mountain. And that's basically it for land placement. Collect at your own wells at the start, build up to double collect, and then just go for that aggressive land. So that wraps up this episode of Deck Doctor. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I really love this deck, and I recommend you give it a go. There's a few different ways you can build this deck as well, so don't be afraid to experiment. Matthew, who originally sent me on this path to play in this deck, he uses Red Devils in his deck. I cut them after a while because I wanted more removal, add an additional Firestorms and stuff like that. So be sure to experiment, tweak, make the deck feel comfortable for you, but also easier to combat decks that are in your meta range on the ladder. So don't be afraid to make adjustments to fight certain decks on ladder. So thank you very much as usual for watching. If you have any comments, feel free to leave them below. Like this video, subscribe to us, follow us on our social medias, and you can keep in touch whenever my videos go live. Of course, follow our stream as well, because I have a great community on there who love to interact and talk in chat. And if you'd like to get involved, you're more than welcome to. Thank you very much, guys. Hope to see you next time. Take care. Have a great day.